Hello everyone, and welcome to another one of those paint and run videos. This time I'm painting on a quite big for my standards size, which is A3 for those who are familiar with it. And the paper is glued on top of a wooden panel, which was made by me. You can even see it. I used it because it was sort of an experiment, and the paper came out wrinkled. So that's why I decided, okay, if I mess it up, I'm not gonna cry because it's already messed up. So I wet the paper really thoroughly, and on top of that wet paper I start applying paint. As you could see there for a second, I wanted to apply it with this fan brush because I have very few brushes, and that was like the biggest one that I could find. It was for watercolors. But then I just quickly switched to this very wide brush that I normally would use for mixed media, and it's a very heavy duty. It's not a watercolor brush, but it did its job, and actually much better than I would expect. You have to work with whatever you have available. And then I'm still working here on top of wet paint. So wet paper, wet paint, tons of water. I'm just adding layers of paint, trying to make it like mix a little bit on the paper. And I'm keeping in mind that whatever is further away, since this is a rainy scene, whatever is further away will be a bit lighter and more blue. Whatever is closer will be a bit more vibrant. That's why I'm adding more paint to the foreground. And I've started, normally I usually start with the character, but in this case I felt like the background and the hydrangeas were more important than the character itself, because if the hydrangeas wouldn't work out, if they didn't look the way I wanted them to, then there would be no point in actually painting the character, because for me personally the hydrangeas were the star of this picture. And I wasn't really sure how to paint them. I'm not really good with painting flowers. I rarely paint that. Anything actually. I try to make myself paint greenery and trees because I have no experience with it. So I started with really thin layers of paint and just kept adding on top in case something didn't work out the way it was supposed to. And here I'm adding more rain, quote unquote, and trying to keep the strokes going from top to bottom, and to kind of emulate the rain droplets, sort of, so that there's this vertical movement to the picture. It will kind of help later on with make it actually feel like something is falling down. Between each layer, between each layer I dried paint very thoroughly, because at that point I was already happy with the initial colors, and I figured, okay, let's do some depth now, and I don't want the dark paint to spread to those beautiful blue flowers. So I dried the paint, and then I'm adding darker greens with my water brush. I really like doing this with the water brush because it has water inside already. It kind of helps with the with blending the paint, I guess. So I don't have to worry that much about changing the brush and rinsing it and then spreading the paint more, with what I would normally do in this situation. So the water brush is really helpful. Here you can see a close-up of that. I change after a while to just a normal brush. I really like this brush, basically because it keeps a lot of paint, and I don't have to reload it that often, and also because it has a pretty neat tip for that size. So even small areas I can easily get there with that brush. And then whenever I get towards the blooms and I want the paint feathered, then I use the water brush to kind of just blend it in. And then I thought that the whole picture was starting to be a little bit too sad and blue. So I've decided to add a layer of this very bright spring green everywhere, on the flowers, on the leaves, just kind of, you know, blending it in, messing around, because even in you know, in the real flowers, they're not always just blue or just red. They have those little sheens of green on them, and I felt that it would add a little bit to the realism of them, even though I don't really strive to be realistic. Oh, hard word. But still, you know, just felt right. And here I'm adding a lot of the beautiful blue color. I have a very love-hate relationship with ultramarine, I believe, because it does just sometimes when it dries, it leaves little spotted dots everywhere, which I hate. But it has this beautiful shade of blue, which I just absolutely love. So I'm still, even though I know I should be careful with it, I just keep adding it everywhere. And in this case, I was very successful because it did not happen. So perhaps I did something good. And the more paint I'm adding, the more happy I remember, the more happy I was with this picture. I just kept thinking, oh, I'm so good. Yeah. You know, this feeling when you've never done something before and you try it for the first time while you've seen other people do it and they are so good at it. And then you do it and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can do it too. Oh my god, that's so nice. That's exactly the kind of feeling I had while painting these flowers. Just trying to I'm trying to kind of accentuate the roundness of the flowers. I know that most of the time they're just not that round and the shade will not be from precisely that angle. But you know, they look like balls, so little round orbs. So it's good. It's, you know, it's how it's supposed to be. I'm also trying to add a little bit more purple here and there, just blending it in. Because none of hydrangeas are never really perfectly blue. They either have a little bit of green in them or a bit of red. And even though I really like blue ones, they just felt a little bit more alive while adding just a tiny bit of purple here and there. I've decided to add a little bit of darker green under the flowers, just to make them pop a little bit more, just to make an appearance that there's something behind them, that they're actually sticking from the bush. And here I'm adding the same green to the leaf, the same bright green. And it doesn't really want to cooperate that well with me. It was just spreading where I did not want it to be, and I couldn't really feel the shape of that leaf. That's why you can see me just adding layers and layers, and then colors, different colors, trying to blend it, trying to get the feel of it. drying it and adding more colors so that it just spreads on top instead of into the different colors, and then I giving up altogether and just passing on something else. Spending lots of time mixing the color in because it was very hard to kind of figure out how much blue or how much green should be inside those bushes, because you have to think about also the way the rain will affect the colors in the end. And I usually don't think about these things, so it's always a bit of an exercise to do it. I'm just adding darker shades in the shadows, just deepening them, making the bushes look fuller. So I think it's worth mentioning that the original footage is over 4 hours long, but I didn't really want to cut anything out of it, just to see how long it actually takes me to paint everything. Here again, I'm messing up the leaf a lot. Adding more color, I wanted because the rain to be a bit darker. And here I completely messed it up. I spread the paint too much and tried to fix it with the water brush, but it just the color did not want to lift. So I tried covering it first and just making everything look very messy and muddy. So I was very unhappy at that point because I felt that everything was messed up and I wouldn't be able to recover it. But then I just gently kept adding colors and just full color without even spreading it. Just I kept adding a layer after layer of color to match those streaks that I've made before. And I'm trying to blend it in a little bit with the fan brush, which is completely useless in my opinion for other things, at least in my painting. I can't use that one. Here I'm drying it very thoroughly. I wanted to make sure that that layer stayed there and didn't move anywhere anymore. And it already looked better. It's just, I really gave a sigh of relief. Very deep sigh at that moment. I panicked very much after that mess up. So then I moved to something different. I finished the hydrangeas completely with just watercolor. So I started filling in the other areas of the character, starting with this tree trunk, which was actually really relaxing to do after all the messy things that happened in the sky department. So like I was saying before, this video is sped up 8 times actually. I believe. I am not very good at math. But yeah, it's 8 times. And I didn't really want to cut anything because I felt it was important to actually show the whole process. Because I spent a very long time, even when I look at it now. I'm thinking I spent a really long time painting those details, which are very, very important to me. And even though they're only visible very up close, so they don't really add anything to the overall picture, they're still visible when you want to really look close to the details. Here I was trying to make a really nice even coat of paint for the coat of Mr. Fox. I very rarely do any kind of shading with watercolors. I usually leave it for like after, just with Copic markers or with colored pencils. But in this case, I just really like the color and the paintbrush felt really nice and smooth. So I added a little bit of shading here and there, just to accentuate the coat, as I felt it really needed it. And here I'm starting to work on the fur. I wasn't really sure how orange I wanted it to be. I just kept adding the orange until it became a little bit too orange. Still really nice, but I never really add so much pigment, so it came out a bit as a shock in the end. It came out nice, but it was shocking. So I'm not really that good at blending paints evenly. I don't have the control yet over the paint that I would like to have, so I tend to take shortcuts. So as you can see here, I first painted a nice layer of orange that was faded into white, and then I added a layer of brown going backwards, fading into that orange. And then I added another layer of both black and orange to just kind of tie it all together. And this is my cheaty way of making gradients. It's easier this way for me because I have more control over what's happening on the paper. And because that layer underneath kind of guides me where I have to put the paint afterwards. And this way it's a little bit more foolproof, I guess, because whatever you add on top will be accentuating the paint underneath, so I don't really have to worry that there will be any sharp edges because there is already a layer underneath that will kind of even it nicely out. And that works for me, so I'm happy with it. The only place it didn't really work was the face of the fox because I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted his features to go. Now Mr. Fox has the same features in all of my paintings, except this little kind of a goatee I'm trying to give him at the moment. At the bottom, his bottom lip. That was new. But because I was painting this whole thing a little bit different than usual, and because the paint on his legs was so vibrant, I needed to put that vibrant paint also on his face, and that kind of didn't work for me anymore because I lost track of his features for a bit. Here you can see me holding my phone for reference because I'm referencing one of my previous paintings to paint in the bottle. It has this little pattern on it that appears in every single picture with Mr. Fox and the bottle. And I really wanted the pattern to be the same, but I didn't remember how it looked like, so thus the reference. And I keep coming back to the face over and over again, just adding extra details, hoping that the face would come out a little bit more distinct. Now, don't get me wrong, I was happy with it in the end. I just felt that I didn't really see his feature under all this paint, and I couldn't fix it. And here I'm already done with watercolors, and I'm switching to Copic markers. I'm using mostly my favorite. This is a warm gray, number 3, so W3, because that's the only one that I have a refill for. So I know that I can. Oh, sorry, I also have a V5, but that's a W5, but that's a bit darker color. This is like a light medium gray, which is really nice. It kind of blends in with every color. It's not too dark for anything. It might be too light for some, like some of the areas. I had to switch to different marker and add another layer because it was invisible. But for most details, it's perfect, and I really like it. And I have a refill for it, so I can just use it without worrying that I will run out of ink. And here I'm adding the same color to all the hydrangea leaves, just to deepen the shadows. I felt that it still needed some shadows. It wasn't black enough. When you look at normal hydrangea bushes, they have this darkness inside them because the leaves are so dark green. But I didn't want to make them that dark in my picture because whenever I add any dark paint, I tend to just go a little bit overboard, and then in the end I'm looking at my picture and thinking, what is this? What have I done? Why is it so dark? And I wanted this one to be really light, and despite the rain, maybe actually because of the rain, because the rain tends to be gloomy most of the time. I didn't want this picture to be gloomy, so I didn't want to add any very dark colors. Vibrant colors, yes, but not dark. So I'm actually very careful with adding the shadows. Here I'm switching towards a blue marker. And unfortunately at this point my SD card in my camera ended. It just cut off a part of the video, but there was not much, just me adding Copic markers everywhere. Here I'm starting to do the white details, and I started with the rain, the most important one. At first I wanted to paint against the ruler with just a paintbrush, but it did not work. So I had this genius idea. I'm gonna make lines in pencil and then go over that with a paintbrush, and that did not work very well either. So I was normally I don't do this because this is my favorite white gel pen. This is a oh my goodness, I will write down that gel pen in the description because I think it's a Kuretake, I think. It's a very, very nice gel pen, and it's really nice. The coverage is perfect, just the tip is a little bit too big for my smaller pictures. But this one is big enough that I can actually pull this off. So I'm actually using the white gel pen against the ruler, just turning it around so that the line is not even, so that it breaks off and fades in, and this way it actually has this more natural look. And because of course I can't really do it on top of the pencil lines, I had to erase them. And this worked perfectly. It was really, I was surprised because the ink did not run very well, but it didn't have to, because otherwise it would just look too even, too straight, and I wanted the line to be broken. I wanted the line to just fade out. So you can see me wiggling a little bit, trying to kind of get the ink to break and flow how I wanted to. And this was actually taken, this is already day 2 of painting. I painted this over 2 days. Simply because there was no good light in the end for in the evening for painting. So the white bits I've added in the morning, the next day. And here I'm adding more white, just anywhere I felt it needed some extra sparkle. Since there is rain, you know, there will be plenty of those wet spots that will reflect light. So I added it anywhere I felt just the water would, you know, gather. So in the creases, at the tip of the leaf, the little splatters at the end of those rain lines. Whichever would I would feel that the line would touch the leaf or the flowers, I would add little splotches. And then I keep adding random white bits, like here a little bit of fur, some reflections in the nose and eyes. Here I try to make the fur points stand out because I covered them in too much dark paint, and also the Copic marker was just, the tip is very big, so it went in the lines of what's supposed to be white. So I'm filling that in and adding really a little bit of fur lines just to make it look fluffy. There is some random pause here. and here I figured, okay, if I could, you know, make the rain work, then the gel pen will probably work also on any other reflections and white, let's call them bits. So why make your life more difficult if I can just use a pen? So especially here, I cannot imagine how long it would take me to paint those little flowers with a brush. So this was a lifesaver here. This was a time saver. I'm adding a lot of those little flowers and little scribbles and little white bits, and to kind of like, you know, wet flowers basically. I felt like it just needed the light reflection. Here adding some of the water droplets, water splotches, splatters, is that the word? I had a lot of fun doing this. I really like adding white to my pictures. It's very gratifying. It's that the picture just comes alive. Everything comes together. There's no more dark areas. Because there's so much light in it that, you know, it evens it out. And yeah, here's a close-up. I made of the fox. I'm really happy with this picture. It came out really nice. I couldn't be happier. And I hope you liked it, listening to me rant for half an hour of the painting time. So yeah, that's basically it. If you liked it, please hit the like button below and maybe even subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.